Almighty God, bestow on us the meaning of words, the light of understanding, the nobility of diction, and faith of the true nature. And grant that what we believe we may also speak. Amen. In every loving relationship, you've got two parts. There's you and the person that you love, or the person whose love that you seek. And it's the same thing with religion. Two parts to the bargain. There's you and me and the God that we gather here together to seek. And in today's gospel reading, there's also two parts. We've got the wise men and we've got the Christ child. The wise men, like most of us, have some baggage. They were really very mistaken about a couple of things. First, they would have fancied themselves astronomers, but we'd call them astrologers. That's to say that they tried to understand the relationship between God and humanity by looking at the stars through the lens of this bizarre strain of ancient Iranian mysticism. And this is a kind of benighted idea, total superstition. And even though their views were uncorrected by Christian doctrine, God works with them. They were looking for something that they valued. They were looking for love. And so they followed their astrological charts until they got to Bethlehem. And God blessed their search. The Magi were wise men who, given what they had, were seeking that which is all important. They were on a journey. However, they had one even more remarkable misunderstanding that's really poignant and endearing, because it's often one of our misunderstandings. The wise men believed that love is inspired by its object. They believed that love is kindled or brought into being by its object. And so they brought gold and frankincense and incense to the king of Israel because they assumed that the king of Israel deserved gifts fit for a king. And that is a false view of love, because we've been given to believe in the gospel that love inspires the object. The object of a smart or beautiful person doesn't inspire our passionate dedication because of their intelligence or beauty, but rather love itself inspires the object. The object has nothing to do with love. The love comes exterior to an object, and that reality creates a relationship in which true worth develops. They found a baby in a barn. This must have amused them or discomforted them or unsettled them. A king's gifts were reserved for a baby in a cattle stall during some sort of tax-inspired census. And this is very powerful because it changed the way that they thought love worked. They saw that the object of their love, the way that they thought love worked, was not in sync with these gifts. In hindsight, we all know that this child was the Messiah and that nothing the Magi could have given him would have been worthy enough except for their hearts. But the Magi were confronted with the puzzle of Christianity, and it's the puzzle of our lives too. I've sat across from folks in my office who are deeply spiritual and intelligent, who nonetheless struggle with this. People who come to me and are worried that they've dramatically suffered in their spouse's view because of changes in their physical attractiveness, or their cowardness about such and such a thing, or their ineffectiveness on the job, or the loss of their loved one's respect. This isn't philosophical. This is the way that we are. You and I actually believe that we determine how much someone loves us, that there's a tit for tat in the arrangement. This is why the wise men thought that they should bring the kingly gifts. It's all that they knew. And they found that God had spoken not through a king, but through this particular baby under these particular circumstances. And that's the gospel truth, which teaches that it's not the worthiness of an object that kindles or sustains or births love, but exactly the opposite. For example, Simon Peter was the worst disciple from the standpoint of what you'd call character. After betraying Jesus for about the 10th time in some form or another, when Peter saw the Lord coming, he says, "Go away from me, for I am a sinful man." And how does Jesus respond? He says, "And I tell you, you are Peter, And on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. The love of the Master, inspired in an unworthy object. Total love, faith, articulateness, lovability, grit, perseverance, flexibility, and strategy. This love birthed the object, birthed Peter, and not the other way around. So what about you? Does your internal dialogue say, I've got to be worthy of this person's love? Or does it say, I'm amazed that anyone would love me, but they have their reasons that are entirely in their personality, and they love me, and that's changed me? Generally, I'd say that it takes a lot of convincing for me to accept someone else's love. But that's never really been the case with my father, with whom I'm lucky to enjoy a very tender relationship. I've always been assured of that love. And I've used this anecdote recently in a sermon, but I've just been chewing on this experience a lot recently as someone who's thinking about starting a family. When I was in 5th grade, my brother and I were practicing our lock-picking skills on a filing cabinet in our basement, where we found my father's old journals. Now, today I would not have opened those journals, but I am very glad that I did then. Of course, the first day that I wanted to turn to was my birthday, which was blank. But it was blank because I was about 6 weeks premature, weighing 3 pounds, 10 ounces. So the first entry in that journal was on the day my parents brought me home from the NICU. And I don't remember what the entry said verbatim, but I remember that it was a prayer to God. And I remember the way that it made me feel, like somebody's answered prayer. And I've known that since I was 11. And my father has loved me like that since I was 2 weeks old or even earlier, a sickly baby, an object completely unknown and unproven. And yet those pen strokes represented a love that's continued to inspire me towards love, that's helped to form me as a person and inspired my sweeter self, my more courageous self. And I think that is how love works. I mean, if you loved your child based on the worthiness of an object, you'd have taken a rain check with your kids a long time ago. Whether they're 2 or 22 or 42. If you loved them on the basis of, you enjoy a trip to the Gap, you're on a collision course with that kid. But we believe that the wise men, wonderfully hopeful and hungry and confused as they were, found that the object of love is never sufficient to create or sustain the love. And we've found this too. That in grace, love comes down at Christmas. And as the 4th evangelist says, God's love was revealed among us in this way. God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him. In this is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the atoning sacrifice for our sins. Beloved, since God loved us so much, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God. If we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is perfected in us. And we love because he first loved us. Amen.